Welcome to Girlfriends of a Certain Age, a podcast for women in midlife. We are busy living our best lives. I'm your co host, Fleshay Hesh. I'm a business coach and work life balance expert for women.
And I'm your co host, Jessica Neighbor. I'm a voice coach for vocalists and public speakers online at Impact Vocal Coaching. We are girlfriends in real life, and in every episode, we'll discuss a different hot topic about becoming wise women, recovering from being a good girl, and not giving a bleep anymore.
If you identify as a girlfriend of any age and you want to join our conversation, join us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com. Hey, welcome back for another episode. Today we are tackling something that most women struggle with, in my experience, and I know Jessica has a lot to say about this, but that is finding power through using our voice. And so today we're going to break down some of the problems and the solutions that you can start using today to be a more effective communicator, a more powerful communicator, and a more authentic communicator. So, Jessica, will you lead us on this adventure into our power and our strength?
Absolutely, Fleshay. This is something I'm so passionate about, being a voice coach and working both with women of a certain age and with young women who are discovering their power and using their voice and navigating all sorts of things that they have to navigate in their careers. So I'm very, very excited and happy to be sharing this with you and with our listeners and our girlfriends. So I'm thrilled. So I wanted to start us off with a sobering statistic. And this is just to remind us that the struggle is real. So this is a really, really interesting statistic that says that women often struggle with asking for higher pay in a job. So while related to the issue of unequal pay, fear of discussing money is a separate issue that affects women more significantly than men. For women, negotiating pay is often viewed as being greedy or desperate, which leads to hesitation when it comes to asking for their worth in the workplace. How many of us can relate to that one?
Oh my gosh. Or one time I asked for more pay and was just told, "No, I don't think we're gonna do that right now." Just no answer. Just it looked he looked me up and down. No, I don't no, we're not gonna do that. Even after I got the guts and the nerve and the ovaries to make the request. It was like he knew that was a weakness for me, and I'm sure I did not communicate it in a powerful way, and it just got swatted away, and
Amazing.
I let it drop.
Amazing. Well, I have a similar experience where I asked for a raise when I was working in the restaurant industry and I was a host, and I saw the male host's paycheck and it was more. And their justification was that he did the night shift, and I was doing the day shift. And in my mind, that didn't make any sense to me. And so I did ask for a raise. And I think they felt a little like cornered because I did see that paycheck. And I saw it because I was handling some of the money things at the end of the shift. And so they did give me a raise, but then they iced me out. All of a sudden, I started getting like work reviews all the time. The whole feeling changed in the whole place. And I'll never forget that a coworker said, this is often what they're doing. If I can sense they're icing you out. And I did. I wound up leaving because it was such a toxic work environment.
So you set a boundary and you were punished.
I was absolutely punished.
Mm. Well, I've got more bad news for us, and this comes from Glassdoor, and that women negotiate their pay less often than their male counterparts. But they did a poll, and it's found that 70% of women accepted the salary they were offered without negotiating, while only 52% of men did the same.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. That
Well,
ain't
let's
right.
let that sink in. No, that ain't right. And this, we know this goes back to the good girl complex, right? That pressure for us to acquiesce, to accept the small handout. It's really, really discouraging.
Well, I mean, not to rock the boat, don't make the other person uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I remember
Mm-hmm.
feeling like, yeah, oh gosh, he did seem a little bit uncomfortable, but he did also found the strength to say no to me when I made my request. But there, we make up stories about the other person that may or may not be true.
Mm-hmm.
And then to
That's
see that
right.
men just charge ahead. Men just charge
Totally.
ahead and just ask for it, even if they're not fully qualified or maybe not even deserving it or phoning it in themselves at work. Men don't seem to have the same concerns about that. And so that is something that you and I are incredibly passionate about, women of every age learning how to use this vocal instrument and get
Mm-hmm.
aligned with our thoughts, feelings, our emotions, and our behavior so that everything lines up and we are
Mm-hmm.
getting our needs met. We're not going to shy away from for asking what we need.
No, that's right. We're not. Because, we know that men are trained to ask for what they need and women are trained to serve men. And that's why you also see time and time again that men overestimate their abilities and women underestimate theirs.
It's true.
So,
But because you're a voice coach,
yes.
we need you to break this down for us, like to teach us how to use this more as an instrument, as a tool.
Yeah.
And so that is what we're going to be leaning on you quite heavily for today. And I
Yes.
know you are
Yes.
more than up for the challenge
Oh, yes. Let's
to
do it.
teach us how to do it.
Okay. So, the thing that we often do is we have these habits when we're speaking that we're completely unaware of. And my job, oftentimes with clients, is to point out some of those habits, right? And we all do them. I have my own ticks and habits that I do. And when I have to watch myself, I do that. Uh huh, right. So we do these things unaware, and unless we record ourselves and have a podcast, which, hey, maybe many of our girlfriends out there do, we just don't know how we're coming across. And I think we oftentimes do think that we're coming across in a more powerful way, or we hope, or maybe we're well aware that we're not coming across as powerfully as we would like to. And I'll hear that from people saying that they feel like they get ignored when they speak, dismissed, interrupted if they're in a meeting, not taken seriously. So I want to first break down a few vocal habits that really disempower us and take away that full power. One is softening our tone, not coming across as too loud, too harsh. And I think most women can relate to that, that there's messaging that we get from a very early age to not be too loud, to soften our tone, or because otherwise we come across as we know what
Mm.
word that is, right?
Well, when we're little, we're called bossy. When we get bigger, that's a different B word. So, can you give us an example of softening?
Yeah, so if I wanted to say ask for a raise and I went in and I was talking about my qualifications, I might, rather than what I think would be a more direct way, which is thank you for taking this meeting with me. I'd like to talk about the ways that I think I can be compensated, for this number. And rather than being very direct about it, I may feel the need to check in with them. Oh, thanks for taking this meeting with me. I know you're so busy, and I know
Mm.
that you have a lot on your plate, and I don't want to, push too much, but here you go. Or it may even be in the actual vocal tone. We may find ourselves getting a little bit higher with our tone, or using more filler words, being more conversational in a meeting where we should actually come across as more competent. But by being conversational, we're trying to be less direct and softer, but it has the opposite impact. Because if someone comes into the office saying, I really need to address this topic, this is important, let's sit down and talk about it, someone's going to go, whoa,
You're right.
rather than I kind of wanna da 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 da, which just sucks the power out of us, especially perceived power from other people. So that's very important to be aware of, as well as girlfriends. When we talk, we may soften our tone together because that's the way we roll. That's our inner language. But in a workplace setting or in any sort of meeting where we're wanting to be taken seriously, we need to be more direct and more deliberate in the way we deliver our tone and not worry as much about softening it.
Mm. The other day, I was at the grocery store, and there was the woman who was the cashier. The guy behind her colleague, offered to help, and I guess he was bagging the groceries. And she made a request of him. Oh, would you go and get this thing? And then he left to go do it. And she said to me, "Oh, I just hate telling people what to do." And I looked
Uh-huh.
at her and I said, did you tell him what to do? You made a request, you asked, and he offered. He said yes. It seemed like that was pretty balanced. Oh, I just hate it. I feel so horrible. I just feel like I just told him what to do. And so it was an interesting thing. And I told her about our podcast and this upcoming episode. And I said, can I use this example? Because we want to talk about how we use our voices and we're powerful. And she said, yes. And she said, I want to get better at that. I want to not be
Mhm.
afraid that he heard me as some bossy person. And it was
Yeah.
fascinating because I thought she was very even, very fair. And he seemed very happy to go and fulfill the request.
Right.
And so we
Right.
do this all the time.
We do. And we have a very hard time, I think, saying a statement rather than a question or a request, right? I mean, in that case, she
Mm.
was asking for something. But so often, if we just have a statement, we turn it into a question. You'll hear people in their introductions saying, "My name is Jessica." Right? And it sounds like you're questioning what your name is. But we're softening, we're trying to soften our tone with upspeak, which we'll get into a little more in a moment. But those requests, how do we soften those requests so we don't come across as those things we fear?
Mm.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. The
absolutely.
overly demanding person. Another really interesting thing that we can do with our voice that we're unaware of. This is the second one. So the first one's softening our tone. The second one is deepening our tone. So there have been a lot of, unfortunately, like proven, research that men and our culture at large respect lower tones. So a lot of women, especially in Western cultures, deepen our tones to be taken more seriously. And I like to use Hillary Clinton as an example of this, because if you think of Hillary's tone, she has deepened her tone, and that when she was up for the presidential debates, her tone was so low, it was getting into what we call in voice coaching the glottal fry zone, where you're almost talking in your very lowest tone and it gets really gravelly.
Ah.
And you'll notice this with many, many different speakers, that they feel the need to lower their tone. Another extreme example of this is the Theranos CEO.
Oh, Elizabeth Holmes,
Thank you,
right.
Elizabeth Holmes. Yes, yes.
Yes. Right. There's all this video evidence that her voice was much higher earlier in her career. And you could see it, like, as a young woman, she started dressing like Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And yeah, she got this weird, creepy voice, really low and strange. And I think I remember even hearing or reading it, watching something where some of the colleagues were like, yeah, we thought that was really creepy and strange because we knew her real voice. But when the lights came on or she was leading a meeting, she just completely changed character.
She did. She did. And in a sort of sad way, it worked. Because
Right.
right, because if you think about those ladies with the higher voices, right? I always like to use Dolly Parton as an example. Dolly has a shtick, but Dolly is one smart businesswoman, but we don't perceive those high voices in the same way.
That's a good
Hmm.
point. That's a
So,
good point.
yeah. So a good thing that we can do is to check how deep are we putting our voice? Are we getting into what's called that glottal zone? If you catch yourself talking and finishing sentences and coming down into that part of our voice, that means that we're lowering our tone more than we need to do. Also, a fun exercise you can do is notice, does your tone shift higher or lower depending on the environment you're in? So when you're with your girlfriends, are you up here? And then when you're in a meeting, you're down here. Just notice the difference.
Right. And maybe that's a place where our other girlfriends could help us. maybe a colleague
Mhm.
at work or something, somebody who we truly trust,
Mhm.
a tested and um, well-weathered friend could give us some feedback on that because we're not going to hear it in ourselves, are we?
No, we're not. We're not.
Right.
We're not going to be aware of it. I mean, I wound up going to a speech pathologist and he showed me how you can like speak into a microphone and it tracks, how deep your tone of voice is. And it was fascinating because I was doing that and I had to lift my voice a little bit just in order to maintain teaching and coaching. So the other thing is it wears on our voice. It gets much more fatigued. And as we age, we need to hydrate. And so also actually keeping your voice in a higher tone is going to allow you to maintain and speak for longer amounts of time without really frying your voice.
Oh, this is really making me curious about when I worked in a more corporate environment, what I did. I know that I mansplained a lot when I was working in that environment. I would over explain myself.
Uh-huh.
And I had a few of my ideas swiped, and someone else took them like, "Isn't this the most brilliant thing?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, that I offered that last month, but a man's offering it, and it's brilliant." And I wonder too, like if I was over explaining myself, and maybe that made me come off not as confident as well. But that makes me so curious: was I making my voice deeper as I was mansplaining at the men?
Oh, goodness. I mean, possibly, and we're all doing it. And I catch myself to this day doing this, even though this is what I critique other people on and help support them to do. So it's in the water that we swim in, right?
Right.
It's what we're navigating. But
This
it's
is
wonderful to have
very
that
illuminating.
awareness.
It's so
Mm-hmm.
illuminating to
Mm-hmm.
have you bring
Mm-hmm.
this to us because I know that today, every woman who hears this is going to approach her next serious or businessy or professional conversation with a different psychology and a different way of approaching it.
Okay, so here's some speech habits that get in the way of our full power. And these are ultra specific. Upspeak. And that's what oftentimes you can also say as a question. I also like to joke that here in California, Flachet, it's baked into our culture.
It's almost
I'm
that Valley
going.
Girl.
Like,
Yeah.
do you want to go get something? But we'll say it when it's not even a question. So if we're talking and we're ending our sentences up and we're explaining something that should be a statement, but instead of a statement, it's a question, that is considered upspeak or uptalk.
And how is that perceived, especially by our male counterparts? Is that seen as weakness?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Especially if we overuse it. And so it's not to say that you can't use it sometimes, because if you're threading thoughts together, then it's very
yeah,
interesting. But we
yeah.
want to go up and then we want to come back down, right? Because we
Mm.
don't want to be just monotonous. But if everything is becoming an upspeak, it absolutely takes the power away. And notice how infrequently men use upspeak. It is very different compared to gender. Women use it way more than men.
Oh, I know I do this. I know I do upspeak.
Well, you're also a California girl, so we forgive
It's
you.
true. It's true. I am a California girl. And yet, I mean, I asked the question, do our male counterparts, think less of us when we do this? But I mean, women, we think less of each other too when we perceive a woman who's not in her power, not saying what she wants to say, when she wants to say it, how she wants to say it. So we do it to each other too. And I would even argue maybe we even do it more to each other than the other gender does it to us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it makes me want to do better because obviously my whole profession is based on my communication style and my ability to communicate. And I imagine that, I mean, maybe everybody's livelihood depends on their ability to communicate no matter how they're doing that. So this is pretty serious.
It's serious, but we have to be open to it, right? Because we just don't get this feedback unless you're in
Right.
this very specific niche thing. So it's a great awareness that we can have. We can point it out to some of our girlfriends. Hey, did you realize that that you when we were sitting down to dinner, you did a lot of upspeak, and let me tell you what that means. With someone, if you can say it in a soft way, or a coworker, if you want to point that out.
I
especially if
don't
they feel like they're
know.
getting talked over. Someone who you trust, someone who you
Yeah.
trust.
Well, like obviously you and I know that for the rest of our lives, when we're old ladies, we'll be calling each other out for these things because we have that trust built in. But
Yeah,
that is a tricky one. I don't know that I
yeah.
would take kindly to someone who I don't feel that close feeling with giving me that kind of feedback. I think I would feel a little like, who
Oh
asked
no,
you?
only with your close people. I would
Yeah.
never do this with anyone who you aren't absolutely feeling close with.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a few of these speech habits that I want us to be aware of. So filler words is another one that is absolutely baked into what we do. So filler words are ums, us, like, a big one in California here, and they're okay when it's more conversational. However, when we want to be taken seriously, that absolutely takes our power down a notch because it makes us less deliberate. It makes us seem like we don't know what we're talking about as much. Very often, we're like when you said you were mansplaining, you may have put in more filler words because we're trying to maintain some attention. So we're filling in the words in order to keep people listening to us. And we also sometimes speak too fast. And so there's more of a ability to have filler words when we're talking faster than we can process and think. So actually slowing down your tone and being more deliberate will help take away some of those filler words.
Mm.
But I think maybe if we're nervous, especially if we're going in to ask for that raise, we may be speaking at a faster tempo, and then those filler words are going to come in more. And I know you and I laugh about here on this podcast how often we use filler words. Again, conversational, we are okay with more filler words, but it might be a really great practice for women to cut out some of those filler words. Today's episode is brought to you by Impact Vocal Coaching. Do you need to improve your public speaking skills? You can increase your confidence and skill with my new training course. It's called Impact, the Essential Public Speaking Course for your online and in person presentations with me, voice coach Jessica Neighbor. You will improve your speaking effectiveness for your meetings, for your podcasts, and for your social gatherings with girlfriends of a certain age. I'm an international voice coach and author, and I've been teaching professionally for 20 years. You'll learn valuable speech skills in my streamlined 6-step process. And listeners of Girlfriends of a Certain Age get 2 bonuses when you join soon. You can join the Impact Vocal Coaching course at impactvocalcoaching.com. Hope to see you inside. Stay calm and speak on. If
So
you hear
the solution is to slow down our speech.
that is absolutely the best solution, to slow down your speech and to breathe. There's another very well-known speech coach named Roger Love, and this was kind of harsh, but he talks about how ums make you seem dumb.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and that's a harsh way of putting it, but the idea behind too many uhs, ums, knows, which also is very related to feeling nervous, which if we are feeling like we're put on the spot or there's pressure, that's going to happen. But just thinking about how we speak and how we carry ourselves really does matter.
It does. And I think sometimes I know I can use myself for this example. If it's my turn to speak and my thought is like maybe 87% formulated,
Yeah.
sometimes the ums are so I don't lose my place getting to say the thing I need and want to say or communicate. And the ums are giving my brain a little time to click it through, like, all right, now, and then you tie it together with that. Now say it. Right. But by the time I've, all right, here you go. This is the most brilliant thing I ever said. Right. So I'm wasting time so my brain can catch up with what I want to say. And I see that even in the doing of that, I might be losing not my position, but I'm losing my power.
Yes. So you are bringing up a really key thing, which is working on being more direct and more deliberate. So you have that brilliant thought, 80% thought out. It's very often a woman's way of warming up to the big picture, warming up to the thing that we're thinking about. Say the thing right away. Say it even if you haven't fully formulated, put it out there. I think we need to do blank. And then here's the different things I'm thinking about why. Oftentimes we'll go, I'm thinking about all these reasons why so that we can do blank. So lead with the most boiled down, precise thought and then expand on it. And you'll hold people's attention, and that's what we're wanting to do. So it's a challenge to ourselves in the way we think, especially if we've been trained to soften how we speak, to be less direct. So it's a great practice. I've been trying to do this lately with my teenage sons because I will lose them if I am talking too long. And so I will work on being very deliberate. Your room needs to get cleaned today. I know you are doing this and this. You need to find time to clean your room by this time, and then I'll fill in the details about it. Because I'll lose them if I'm working my way up to the thing that I am telling them to do. I don't know if that's just a parent thing, but it makes a difference.
Well, it's a parent thing that I'm just learning. Of course, I'm raising two boys as well, and I got some feedback on a family vacation that I might have been over explaining a little bit to the dude, and so it's actually my wonderful brother, and I was asking him for some feedback about a certain situation, and so that was one of the feedback that I got, and so I've been trying it, and now I'm just like breakfast. I'm not, I don't even say breakfast time, food's on the table, come eat, nothing. I just say the one word. And sure enough, they just come right over, eat. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. I can do that.
Yes, absolutely.
But I can see too how that goes out into the world. I'm going to take that challenge on, this idea of, even if I don't have each argument buttoned up and tested and ready to go, to get my main point out first. Because I do want to be taken seriously, and I am a serious person, having a fully formed argument or position feels you can even see my brain thinking very clearly about it right now, right? My eyes are darting all about, and I'm trying to put it together, because that is so important to me, and it is my brand, and it is, my brand in my real life, not just how I am when a microphone's in front of me. But I see that I could be losing opportunities to be heard if I'm thinking about it too much.
Yes, if we're overthinking it. I think that goes back to that statistic about women feeling underqualified and men in general. These are, generalizations, but men feeling overqualified. That how we speak, can we back it up with proof? Have we really thought it out? That we have been burned for these things. So there's good reason why you think that way. You have a training and an expectation for yourself that has been, trained into you. But yeah, I think it's a great thing to practice. It's a great thing to practice.
This might be something of our generation too. I imagine that you were told a similar message as me. I was told as a young child, you can do anything boys can do. And my mom would sometimes add, so she would say sometimes, you can do anything boys can do, and probably better. I still have some of that. Like, I can do anything you can do, and I can do it better. And so I'm going to take my time and think it through. And so now I'm realizing I'm an old dog who's being presented with an opportunity to learn a new trick. And instead of being like, well, I actually feel sort of exhilarated. Like, I'm going to go try it on my husband and boys later today. If I have an idea, I'm just going to say it without it being fully formed. I'm going to see how I do. I'm excited. Absolutely. I'm going to take the challenge.
Oh, I love it. Okay, good. Amazing. Yeah. And the final habit that we really want to work on is apologizing less.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
And that comes up in, lots of different situations. I was hiking with two friends of mine, and one of them is a soccer coach for her daughter's soccer team. And she said that they, it's a contact sport, and they're playing, and they're constantly apologizing to each other out on the field, constantly. Sorry. And she keeps trying to say, everyone stop saying sorry to each other. And then it was so funny because we were venting about this on our hike, and another woman walking by heard it. We must have been a little loud and was laughing and saying, "Ah, that drives me crazy too." What I try to do now, instead of saying sorry, is say, "Excuse me." And we thought, okay, well, I guess that's a little bit easier. But you notice in young girls that the gut reaction, if we feel like we're hurting or stepping on someone's toes, is to say sorry. So think about in conversation how that comes up. How, oh, did I just interrupt you? Sorry, I just wanted to say something. You don't have to say sorry.
No, we don't.
No, we
I don't remember.
don't.
Well, I don't remember where I read this, but it was something businessy, maybe a blog post, and it had a bunch of ways that we could replace the phrase "I'm sorry." And I remember one of them was like in an email in particular, instead of saying "I'm sorry it took me so long to get back to you," it
Mhm.
was "Thank you for your patience." Blah
Ah,
blah blah blah
yes.
blah blah blah. And I use that now all the time. I realized I was always apologizing. I'm so sorry for this, for that, for being alive, for taking up too much air. Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
No, I think that's a great point. I think we should be, I think we should be a lot more stingy with our apologies.
Oh
Only
yes,
use them when we genuinely think we need to.
absolutely. I feel like this could be an entire episode: how to give and receive an apology.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
Mm,
true. It's a big
yeah.
one. Notice how it comes up in speech. Notice in your conversations, especially in group conversations, if you do catch yourself saying, I'm sorry. And we're going to think of ways to practice just not thinking as much about that. If you notice men very infrequently say, I'm sorry, and they do cut each other off. And sometimes you need to do that, but you can do it in a polite, caring way. But there's some folks who will just go on and on and on, and it's okay to come back. And it's a great thing to remind yourself too, if they really had something else to say, they'll get back to it.
Wow. Okay. So my head is spinning a little. So I imagine our
Yes.
listener might be a little bit as well. Would you run through those again? Just like boom, 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 so that we can just sort of have like tie this up really nicely and bring this with us into our next conversation.
Absolutely. So here's the things that we're going to practice to empower ourselves. We're going to practice direct speech and being deliberate when we speak. And that's going to help us to be taken more seriously. Get to the kernel of what it is that you want to say, and then you can build out an explanation around that, right? So whether that's breakfast or I'd like to request a raise, all of those things, the more direct we can be, the better. Uh, Two, I want everyone to practice slowing down a little bit more if they are fast talkers and if you find yourself using a lot of filler words. So slow yourself down, take breaths, notice if you're habitually using a filler word like like, and see if you can work those out. And by slowing down, it will be much easier. If you go too fast, those filler words are going to creep back in. And then third is to think about balancing your warmth and competent cues. So let me explain this just a little bit. I don't want us walking around now feeling like we have to go, feed me. You wrong, me right. We still want to bring our full energy and our authentic selves to this. So remembering that this is a balance. You're not all wrong in what you do. Those warmth cues, those caring cues, really matter in our society. We don't want to be too blunt and too abrasive for anyone, right? And you'll see sometimes some women overcompensating by being that way. So I just want everyone to be aware that it's a balance between being soft and warm and being competent and, perceived as, smart. And those two things are what we're balancing out here. So think about which of those things you want to practice: being deliberate, slowing down, taking out some of those filler words, or apologizing less, and see how those work out for you.
This feels like a real gift to get to hang out with a real bona fide vocal coach to help us break these things down in a very personal way. And
Mm.
I'm very excited to see certainly how I approach my future communications, thinking with these topics in mind, but also our listener. So we would love to hear back from you. You're welcome to respond to any email that we send you. Or certainly if you're listening on Spotify or on Anchor, you can leave us a voice message. We'd love to hear your voice and have your voice added to this conversation. Tell us a story that happened to you, a time you made a request and it didn't go that well, or you made a request and it went like gangbusters and you need to brag. We would love to hear some good news and how your vocal instrument served you well and the ways that you can continue to do that. So, with that, Jessica, I want to thank you for sharing your smarts with us today. This was incredible.
My pleasure. And if you do want to explore this anymore, I do have a course, Impact Vocal Coaching course. You can check that out in the liner notes below. There's even an opportunity to get some direct feedback from me about your voice. If you're just like, I don't know where to start, I don't know what I sound like, we could explore that together. So thank you so much for asking some great questions about our voice. And we're just going to keep on communicating the best way we can.
I love it. Till next time, ladies. Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
for tuning in today to Girlfriends of a Certain Age podcast.
Do you have a girlfriend who needs to hear this message? Share this episode with her. She will love you forever.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and comment wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay tuned for more episodes where we discuss more hot topics about girlfriends living their best lives. You can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com.